All right, we are recording. What do you gotta carry here? So, all right, so we're looking at the truck series, Daytona video here, since everybody loves the Daytona talk. So what do you want to look at exactly here? Like the optimals, how they're being made. I know I made the video kind of visualizing the optimal lineups for the past super speedways for the Cup Series. I think that's way more helpful than probably what we've done in the past. But I'm
People
assuming this is
like to
going to be
look at the
Wreckfest as well.
names, don't they?
Say that
They
again.
like to have an idea of who's finishing where. I know that really it might be the best strategy to ignore the names, but as a viewer, people want to see the names. What do you think?
Are we here to watch races or are we here to make money? Like,
Okay. I think there's both though. I agree. It is useful to just look at the starting position, but I also believe there is some degree of consistency of some drivers routinely performing well for whatever reason at plate tracks. So you can't completely ignore the names. Are we at least in agreement there?
yeah, we're in agreement there, and I think that's where the results like factor and everybody that you see in the green or at least finishing inside the top 15 more than normal. I think that shows like I think that's all the history or that's all the insight that you need to focus on those guys. And really it's so circumstantial. Like most of the wrecks nowadays we are seeing happen in the front or in the leaders and stuff, but like predicting those that don't get in wrecks is almost harder than predicting those that are involved in wrecks, you know?
So I guess just the first thing, because I think we just have to go over the basics, right? And I know people that have watched this are going to say, "Oh, I already know these things." I'm sorry, but I think the first thing we need to do before we look at some of these lineups is just that, and you can see it here, right? It's the place differential chasing. How many do we have to chase? When we're looking at the truck series right here, we'll probably, if we got time, to go into the Xfinity series. We'll just do truck series for now. How many place differential points do you need to chase? Is it 15 spots? Is it 20 spots? And you get a general idea here that it's around 15 to 20 from last year's Daytona. And we'll just quickly fly through a bunch of different Daytona races to look at previous place differentials. And I should have that color coded, but I don't. Sorry. But you're seeing it's a pretty big number there. Daytona 2020, again, it's another big number. I just want to cover our bases here, hit the basics of, and I'm sure you're going to agree with me, chase, place, differential, and we can look at the names in a second, like Angela Rook. That's right, folks. So we agree, chase, place, differential.
Yeah, and interesting that you brought up Angela there, but I'm more on, and certainly for the two lower series like Xfinity and Truck Series, is play the names that are absolutely disgusting. Because not only do they have some very similar upside, nobody wants to play Angela Ruck. Nobody wants to play, these guys. Corey Roper back then was like an unknown name.
Yeah, I mean, Roper's had a couple races where, I mean, he's clearly in inferior equipment. Um, Same with Robot. Even though Robot's equipment was halfway decent last year, or at least Enfinger made it look halfway decent at times. But I, I would assume outside of the diehards, most people are not very familiar with Roper. They're not very familiar with Robot. Last year, these aren't that crazy names though from Daytona. Obviously, Rhodes, big time team. Roper, they ran a lot of the races. They didn't run as many during COVID. Before COVID happened, they were running pretty frequently, unless they
Mm-hmm.
would wreck their truck, and then you would see Roper kind of fall off the map for a while. Truex was it Nice last year?
Mm-hmm.
I can't keep track of where he is from one day to the next. Jordan Anderson, we know that the Jordan Anderson truck is very capable. What's up, bud? Just go sit in our house. We're gonna get a ghost. I know a vacuum gets ghosted. So apparently there are ghosts in her house, and a vacuum will get the ghosts out. All right.
See, he knows Ghostbusters.
That's
He
right.
knows what
That's
he's.
I'm more concerned. It might be Luigi's Mansion, is what we might be referencing right there.
Gotcha.
But either way, Luigi's Mansion. That's clearly ripping off Ghostbusters. Um, Sorry for the interruption, folks. But that's just the way that it's going to be. But So let's look at previous ones because you said get uglier. This is not completely dirty ugly, is it? But it's
There's
bad. I mean, it's bad enough, right?
look, there's not a single, like, especially when we're talking like A and B tier type of drivers, there's not a single B tier like driver in that getting these types of positions. And especially because we have qualifying back, like there's not gonna be good drivers in the back here. Yeah, so
That is a very good point. We're gonna see some. Yeah, wow, that will be interesting.
do you remember the first Truck Series race that DraftKings had?
Yes, I do because that was I just launched solo, and the first night I was driving from North Carolina to Cleveland, Ohio,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought, well, it sucks. I'm going to miss the first race, and I'm doing this product that I'm
Yeah.
selling. Would be nice to watch that race, but I was driving with my then. He wasn't even 1 year. Was he one? No, he's like 3 or 4 months old. We were driving all the way, and we made it. I left after work, so like around 4 o'clock from Greensboro, North Carolina, all the way to Cleveland, Ohio. The race had not ended. I was able to open a beer and watch the end of that freaking race because it was so ridiculous.
It was bad.
That would have been what 20. That would be 2019. This is the first one, right?
Yeah.
Here it is.
Because so this was the first race that we did, and I was like, I'm playing the guys in the back because I don't care what their names are, and so good old Bobby Gerhart. No, Angela. I mean, this was, and
Angela.
Yeah.
Even though her equipment was halfway decent, was she Nice then, or
She was no, that was during her television show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
No, was that next year? I can't remember. Yeah, so the next year though, she actually bought a couple decent rides.
Mm-hmm.
Timothy Peters had his own team there, did whatever. That was before he got fired by Rackley. He was still doing his thing, but this was well after Red Horse Racing days. Chastain, that was his championship season, but really didn't have like a big name there. Josh Rayum.
Yeah.
Oh man, I talked way too much about Josh Rayum in 2019 on the podcast. And then Austin Hill won that race. I think he was pretty much out front the entire time. And then, so for the rest of the season, like, oh, well, he's not that good. He just won a plate race. And then halfway through the season, realized, like, man, Austin Hill and Hattori are halfway bad. Maybe he got lucky at that plate race, but that truck was running pretty decent. But yeah, that was pretty ugly. There was constant. I mean, just the point that race, I think it was over by midnight.
Mm-hmm. It was a long time. One thing because I still just fully believe that every truck race at a plate race is going to be this way. So this might be a bit extreme, but I know I'm talking about positions, but let's like look at the total DK points that everybody's scoring here. So you don't even have to like knock anything.
A lot of points.
Yeah.
Like it's same. Like it's like there's not a lot of separation. Like we're used to seeing because it's a plate race, but this is the plate race with very few laps. Too many laps, though, if you ask me, for this truck series. I think the best way to illustrate the point, what you're making, that you kind of want to roster these junkers, is let's just look at last year's race lap by lap to paint the picture of how chaotic this can be. I probably have the years before, but look, there's a caution 2 laps into this thing. Lap 2. All right. And then they kind of get their act together, and we get to stage break in one piece. And then they get a caution. And it's really not that bad. But you know that it's only a matter of time before these lunatics just lose their minds. And you look at stage 3, and boy, big surprise here. Caution, caution, caution. And these are cautions right after cautions. Cautions right after cautions. Somehow, by the grace of God, they're able to go 10 laps here.
Go
caution. But then they make sure, like, oh, no. Well, time to heat it back up. I mean, you've got, just in stage 3, which this is a short stage 3. It's, 50 laps. one, two, three, four, five, six cautions. And it's just, it's inevitable when you have these stages built into a truck race, a 100-lap truck race, that it's almost guaranteed that it's going to be mayhem, even if the drivers don't want it to be.
Go to
Just
the
keep
go to the
putting the
bottom
right
and look at how many drivers we lose at every yellow.
That's a good way to look at it. So if people are new to the spreadsheet, this is one of the little tricks that you can do. Just get an idea. All right, so there it goes. We lost poor Gus Dean and Tanner Gray. I don't even know if they even started.
Oh yeah, James Busher was in that race. I totally forgot. He was chalk. I remember James Busher was chalk.
Started 36th, finished 36th. Well, got the rest of my Friday night to go about my day. I, probably had 80% James Busher.
So I guess these guys wrecked for last here because you had.
You could still cash. So
Uh-huh.
don't completely. If that happens to you on the Friday night and you're already 5 beers deep or whatever, and you're like, oh well, you can still cash with 3 guys making it to the finish, as we're going to illustrate in a second. But you ain't winning the GVP if you had Chris Busher, or not Chris, James. If you had Gus Dean in a Young Motorsports car, probably.
No, that was I think it was Timmy Hills.
Oh, was he?
I could be wrong. I know he ran that sometimes.
I don't have the number on here. All right, so there is. You lost 3. All right. Everybody hangs in there for stage 1. Everybody's still there towards the end of. Well, actually, yeah, everybody's still here so far. Everybody's still here by the end of stage 2. That's actually pretty impressive. You still have 32 cars. Now we start cutting people out. Let me freeze this so we can see the names. Da-da-da-da. All right. All right. Derek Kraus will be the next name that we lose on lap 53. So we're halfway through. We still have 33. I mean, that's actually pretty impressive.
Mm-hmm. And he wrecked in 21st, so this was, the leaders did not wreck here.
Yeah, I wonder what if that could have been a mechanical issue. That could have been. I'm not going to go back and watch the. I'll go back and watch the truck races. I'm not going to watch this one. Maybe 2X. Maybe, I don't know. We'll see what goes on. Anyway, so we get to lap 70, and we still have pretty much everybody. And then Stuart Friesen. So we lose. This is a wreck up front.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we got Stuart. We got Ty Dillon in second. Lap 71, he's dosed. Friesen gets taken out with him. Ogelman. What was he doing? I could know he was in 14th. He was right there with him as well. He nursed it around for another lap. So we lost. How did that happen?
He may have ARCA braked. Look at. We'll look at the. We'll look at the Talladega race as well, and watch. What's her name?
Those are big names that get taken out, and the wreck happens in the middle of the field. And it's, anybody's game. There's good drivers and good equipment. All right. So then our next wreck doesn't really take any. It probably damaged some people, but it doesn't seem like it took anybody out right here at this point, as far as I can tell. And then it could have been, though. It could have taken some of these guys. Looks like this one hit some damage. And so at this point, I got 30 guys on the lead lap, right? But it looks like Chase Purdy probably has some severe damage, maybe.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you want to slide up the screen a little bit, you can see where everybody's like changing positions because obviously this is sorted by finishing order. But you can just see like who isn't being taken out in these wrecks, but are losing a giant amount of positions here.
All right, so we'll sort it that way. So we have Chandler Smith takes the lead, and he gets to keep it for a while. Pretty cool, huh? You got Rafael Lessard starting second on lap 65. He's done. He obviously got collected in that situation that took out some of these guys. So this is one of the things you can mess around with. You can see, like, all right, where are they dropping at? Mm-hmm. Let's see who drops here. Grant Enfinger just looked like he lost some spots. by drop. Nothing crazy right there, really. You got Chase Purdy got taken out. This is probably the big crazy one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Actually, you can see it right here.
Oh, this is perfect. Yeah, yeah.
You can see that Grand Am figure looking good, looking good. Um, what happened? You
Mostly,
think?
I'm thinking that he most likely pitted for damage
Yeah.
under that yellow, because
There's no other explanation
yeah,
why he would have given that up. But you can see Dave Gilliland obviously got caught up in that. Or no,
he gained position.
he got through. He gained 10 spots.
Mhm.
They gave them all back. Dave! You see, Sheldon Creed was in 10th. Boom, he's up to first. Surviving.
I think what you should do is sort it by lap 94, because they probably wrecked on 95, and so that's
So Timothy Peters, see ya. Chandler Smith, you were in 4th place, had been running in the top. He's in the same spot, right? There's always that theory of like, if you stay up in the front, you can avoid a lot of chaos.
Mm-hmm.
Well, didn't work out for Chandler Smith. And that's one of the strategies you could look at, is look at lap by lap data and see like what's their average running position, who are the guys that run laps in the 20s and the 25s. That was kind of always the thing with JTG Daugherty, was like AJ Allmendinger and Chris Buescher, Ryan Preece. Their strategy, you could look at their lap by lap data and see like these guys are always hanging in the back. Denny Hamlin's another guy. If you look at the data, especially if you look at previous lap by lap data in the spreadsheet, you can see like Hamlin stays in the back and he's made that work for him.
Mm-hmm.
Some guys can make that work. Some guys want to run up front. Obviously, that didn't work for Chandler Smith. And if you feel like that gives you more, I don't know, do you feel it? Are you more likely to say, give me guys in the back, or are you going to spend time like, all right, well, this guy tends to run here? Where are you at?
I've done both, and it just depends on how good they can get through the field. Like Hamlin would be, I would love to play Hamlin if the guy didn't keep starting inside the top 4, because he runs in the back the whole time and he avoids all the wrecks. But for fantasy, he's still a terrible play, you know.
Yeah.
And oddly enough, a lot of the guys who know what they're doing when they do right in the back are guys that start up front.
Yeah, that's right. And so there's a couple. I mean, you could look at lap by lap data is the easiest way to do that now. But you can also, like before we had this, you would just kind of like have to guess based on their average running position and get an idea, a sense of who. But again, there isn't a safe spot. There is Chandler Smith. I mean, it's about as close as safe as you can be. Not so much. And then we can look at the opposite and say, oh, well, that's kind of a dangerous spot for Jordan Anderson. Running in the middle of the pack. If the more cars that you have in front of you, the more cars that you have to avoid in terms of a wreck. But for whatever reason, Jordan Anderson has been. I mean, this is second.
So I didn't even interrupt you here.
You got all the ghosts? I ain't afraid of no ghosts.
I'm not scared of ghosts.
Busting makes me feel good.
No,
Ray Parker Jr.
Isn't the Ghostbusters theme song just a Huey Lewis song?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
It? How did he got sued? Didn't he? It's the what is the Huey Lewis song?
I got a new drug, right? Yeah.
I think he got sued. Huey Lewis is deaf now, man. Feel bad for the guy.
The point I was going to make is I think I was telling Sheets this last year. My ideal, so in my brain,
what Anderson's numbers, man? He makes it work. He's finished second 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
Right, go back to your Sheets thing.
I was telling him that my idea of like building lineups is I want to have guys who are in the back who can take advantage of a late race yellow. And so typically, like in a situation like this, guys that are like really ugly, and I guarantee this is a race where I was not winning money before lap 95, because I just had people like Cody or people like Austin Wayne Self, Anderson. Like I need that wreck because I'm not playing the guys running up front.
Spencer Boyd won at Talladega in 2019 or 18
Mm-hmm.
or it was 2018.
Yeah.
So there he is going from 23rd to 13. He probably had damage too, but you get enough cautions. And so, yeah, if you had Boyd, you weren't winning any money. If you had Jennifer Jo Cobb, which we've all been there, like, oh, I'm screwed. You need a bunch of cautions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But guess what? It's probably going to happen. She didn't quite get you there, but you get one more caution, and she avoids it. She gets the top 10, 30th to 10th. It works.
Mhm.
I mean, right? Like, she basically was about one caution away, right? Just because of attrition. She didn't pass anybody.
No.
She was just the last, but she wasn't even Jason White, which I think is, who was he driving for? Another bum truck.
Another bad truck, but White can get it done too.
He still ran 100 freaking laps, though. And again, it's 100 laps when half of the laps are caution laps.
Mhm.
Their trucks can kind of get there, and especially the first race of the year. If there is a race where Jennifer Jo Cobb's truck should be, finely tuned, if that's such a thing, it should be this Daytona race. She's been doing this damn thing forever, especially if she wants to run this in the Cup Series. I can't believe they didn't let her run the Cup Series last year. And they didn't get any.
No, that was
during,
Cobb,
like,
not
the
yeah.
wokest era of mankind, political correctness. You would think, like, wow, the Cup, they're not going to let the woman race. You would think that there would be some sort of mild outrage, at least among the NASCAR media, right? You would think at least the woke NASCAR media would say something about it. Nothing. They said nothing.
Well,
about
if
it.
anything, they said we told you so when Kligerman went on the rant about her destroying his car in that ARCA break.
Yeah, but it doesn't. It's a freaking plate race, man. You let anyone run these things. You're just mashing the throttle. Like, what are we doing? She's gonna be in the back. You let these other people run these races. You let her run other events where it's much more dangerous, where she's much more of a danger to other people. I mean,
yeah.
Well,
the first year.
I mean, I'm not gonna pull. Man, there was at least a tinge of sexism. There's just no way there wasn't. There's just no way there wasn't. Oh, well, they let some other girls race. Well, they didn't let this one race. Whatever, but like, she's run 1 million plate races in the trucks. Like, what's the difference?
I can't believe that they let Cope run last year with no
stupid rules.
It's so dumb.
But I wouldn't be surprised to see him, like, dust him off again and throw him in a car. Like, oh, no, sorry, we got to get a spot because he's past winter. Honestly, I could hear a conversation like, hey, or was it a couple years ago where, who was the guy they had to pull off at Bristol? It's 2018. It's an Xfinity driver. Like, get this guy out of here. We can't let this kid run. He's out of control. And so they pulled him. They wouldn't let him run at Bristol because it was too dangerous.
Mm-hmm. I don't remember who it was.
Run a freaking Cup car, which has no horsepower left at all, but you're gonna let her run in the Truck Series, which, where is there more wrecks? Which is crazier of a race? Oh no, she's fine to run the Truck Series. Are you kidding me? Like, that's a more dangerous situation. And a lot of times, like, oh, well, we're just looking out for her. Then why are you letting her get in a truck? Why are you letting anyone get in those trucks if you really? But my bigger point is, which people are probably, who cares, whatever. You're going to get 1 million plate race podcasts anyway. So if we take 5 seconds to talk about Jennifer Jo Cobb, then guess what? We always do this. Never shy away from Jennifer Jo Cobb talk. How was not one of, Jim Utter or one of those people that you just can't stand on Twitter not going to, like, at least say anything? When we know why. We know why they won't cross NASCAR or second guess anything that NASCAR does. But it's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing that all that happened and people just looked the other way.
Well, even remember when they didn't let J.J. Gailey run a Slayer car at Bristol, but they let Noah Gragson run I think a John 5 Center album car? Like, what are we talking about?
The hypocrisy and inconsistency of, like, oh yeah, we're going to let you run this. Like, we can't do vape pens. We can do vape pens. We're not going to do cryptocurrency. We are going to do cryptocurrency. We're going to do that cryptocurrency, but not that cryptocurrency. It's really, well, it's just purely whatever they decide. There's no consistency. It's what they want when they want, and you just have to do. I can remember they used to be so against vape pens and against all these things and wanting to change their image. And now there's so much alcohol and CBD. I think they're running CBD cars, and like, they changed so fast.
Uh-huh.
One day, like, oh, we were absolutely never ever going to agree upon that kind of a product in our
Mhm.
sport, and the next day they're like freaking chugging CBD oil. You know,
Yeah.
we're not going to get into cryptocurrency. Meanwhile, we've got DC Solar
Uh-huh.
scamming people out of billions of dollars. We've
Well,
got
we
Chip
don't want
Ganassi
to.
had to sell his team because he was running
Uh-huh.
a Ponzi scheme. Well, we're not going to let some sort of cryptocurrency. It's insane.
We're hesitant to let MGM on the side of a car because we don't want to, be accused of fixing races, and then they let them on. They let DraftKings sponsor
like,
Bubba.
we
Like,
don't want to do any gambling, and then like the next day you're getting hammered with all kinds of gambling stuff. And that's like, wait a second, like it was all about this pious, holier than thou. Gambling is for sinners, and now it's like
it's
we're
there.
cutting montages at the casino and doing, or the Monster Energy girls are half naked, and it's like, what are you just be on? Well, I mean, they kind of are now, right? It's entertainment. All right, back to
Let's look at Dega. I want to see. I want to see the big one at Dega and how many people it took out.
I don't know how bad this one was, to be honest with you, but I mean, I guess the quickest way is just look at the end. Right?
No, well, this is the one that I finished like 10th or 11th in because Tyler Hill, because the whole field killed each other late in the race.
You got Fogelman winning, so Young Motorsports with another victory at Talladega. So Fogelman won 2 years before that. Boyd won the year before that. Lassard won. It was chaos. It's chaos in every time.
Yeah.
Who was winning before Fogelman? Because
it was Gillen.
Gillen, Nemechek. They still finished near the front. I think someone else was a really surprising.
I'm sure it was the KBM guys running up front the whole time.
I mean, basically, you got 15 cars who finished on. Man, I'm trying to remember the end. I mean, don't they just go nuts at the end and wreck each other like crazy? And Fogelman gets the win somehow, but it's dirty.
Well,
did Fogelman wreck someone? Didn't he? Didn't Fogelman wreck?
I think he went under the yellow. I don't know. But go to the left. We need to see the big wreck that happened because I want to see where everybody was running in that.
The biggest one. All right, so we only lost a couple here. We only lost a couple here.
Only lost a couple. We only have 20 cars left. Okay, so I think this is. Oh, it's lap 58. Yeah.
That's a pretty good chunk right there, right?
Yeah, that's a huge crash.
All right, and so I mean, look at the jump. Tyler Hill is in 27th. He's in 8th. And what we really want to see is some of these bigger names that go down. So Clay Greenfield. Clay Greenfield's been pretty solid in some of these plate races. Haley Deegan goes out. It's fair. That looks like an ARCA break if I've ever seen one. Kraus is out in the middle. Looks like they were all taken out. Anderson actually is good to go. Chandler Smith gets taken out again. Tyler Ingram, Austin Wayne Self, Johnny Sauter, Austin Hill. I mean, these guys are up front. Zane Smith. I wonder if this was a stage break too. Is coming up.
Oh yeah, I think they were racing.
No, it wasn't. They had just come out of the stage break. They were just being stupid. No surprise. Austin Hill, Zane Smith, Tanner Gray. So you get the wreck at the front, takes out the guys in the middle. Dollar goes down. Chris Wright goes down. These guys are already out. So you get a wreck up front. Again, no place is safe. No drivers are safe. And if you played a guy in the back, they've just through attrition gained 7-8 spots. They didn't deserve, but that's just the way that these plate races work. Especially in the trucks, especially in the Xfinity series. Yeah, you just play guys in the back.
You got to I
mean, that's my. I'm going to put a little bit of strategy and thought into it, just because we're doing the podcast and whatever. But really, at the end of the day, I'm taking guys in the back, and I kind of try to lean towards drivers with a little bit of history, with a little bit of decent equipment, and we'll have an idea with practice. They won't we don't have to worry. Did they put oil in the truck? Some of the stupid stuff that we've seen recently. It's a good chance that they're all going to make it through stage one if they don't wreck. We're not going to have the mechanical failures to worry about because they will have had a practice and a qualifying.
Yes, that's the other point I want to make. So obviously we're going to have guys going home in this event. So even the guys starting in the back aren't the worst cars or the worst trucks.
So yeah, it's actually nice. And I know like some of the more negative people are going, oh, well, these practices aren't like the old practices, which is fine because the old practice was too freaking long to begin with. Well, it's not long enough. I get it. I understand that point of view. And maybe in the Truck Series and Xfinity Series, it will just be a shakedown for some of these teams. But if I'm a top tier team, I'm not wasting that precious time, especially in the Cup Series. I know a lot of people like Rob Parker say, oh, it's just going to be a shakedown for some. Fine, cool, great. Let your team waste your practice time on a shakedown. Whereas if I'm JGR, I got 4 cars. We're all going to run 4 different setups. We're going to use our time as efficiently as possible. And we're going to try to figure something out every single week with the time that we have. It might be limited, but we're not just going to throw this time away
Mhm.
for a freaking shakedown. And the fact that Bob Parker's like, oh, it'll probably just be a shakedown. Like, you seriously think that they're going to waste that limited time every single week? Oh, well, it's just a shakedown because they don't have enough time. You don't think that they have a plan to figure out how can we most efficiently use our time? You freaking crazy. The data is not going to be like it used to be, but we're going to quickly find out how to decipher like, oh yeah, that's kind of useful data there. We're going to be able to use certain parts of it. It's not going to be the same. It's not going to be as easy because we're going to have to guess like, oh, are they running 4 different setups? What is their strategy? What is their game plan? But there's going to be some usefulness, especially in the Cup Series. Xfinity Truck, yeah, I can see some of these bums in the back. It's not going to be that useful. Especially, but again, in the past with the Xfinity Series, you got like Matt Mills will go out there. He's got tires from 3 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, he's running the
Uh-huh.
old tires. Like, oh man, why is Matt Mills so slow? Yeah, because he's using tires that someone had just like BJ ran down the road. Said, hey, can we borrow? How
Uh-huh.
much do you want for those tires? But that's another thing. With practice and qualifying back, guess what, folks? See, I don't know though, because the Cup Series is going to be having it's different tires now, right?
Mhm. Yeah,
And
but I mean,
Xfinity Truck.
you could still buy scuffs from the good teams in the
Yeah,
Truck
you're still going
Series.
to be able to buy, at least for the race, you're going to be able to buy those qualifying scuffs. So that's going to add to the BJ McLeod's being a little bit more able to race. JD Motorsports. Tommy Joe Martins is going to be all over that stuff, wheeling and dealing. And so they might like, and I think that's why Tommy Joe Martins may have 2 teams now. He might realize that this is an opportunity. And you could see like these guys, I know we're getting kind of off the topic, but whatever, that's what we do. You could see them not look good in practice and not look good in qualifying. And then they come out in the race like, well, where did that speed come from? Well, now they have tires. They didn't have any tires in practice. They did just go out to make sure the car was going to run. They saved those tires. They may not even use the damn tires in qualifying later on when they don't have to qualify, right?
Mhm.
And so we're going to go back to that old scheme and that old system of figuring out who's got tires, who doesn't have tires, and not being able to trust practice times for a lot of the BJ cars or the TJ. Well, actually, what are they? Prime Alpha.
Alpha,
What is it?
beta, male, whatever. Like, and they got like a new. So a lot of people are like talking them up. Like they have a new driver in that car like nearly every week.
Yeah, and we've
Like,
seen that
yeah.
not work out for like Sam Hunt, who had pretty good equipment. And I think you talked about this in your video, where you're switching these guys in and out. It just doesn't work. I think that really held back Big Machine. Actually, I think they had Buford in the car most often.
Mhm.
Though. We saw a couple teams that were switching guys in and out. You just don't get the same feedback. You don't have the same consistency. Obviously, last year we didn't have enough practice time. To me, and I know people are like, oh, but it's not like it used. This is really a good resetting point, and I think it's a good time to be optimistic about. We're all kind of going back to square one. We're all starting over and trying to relearn this thing. So now is kind of the time to jump into the data, jump into the spreadsheet, try to learn what's going on, putting in the homework, putting in your due diligence, and starting to build right back up. I don't feel like anyone has any type of advantage over anyone in terms of DFS. Now, obviously, if you're going to build a lot of lineups, you have a bit of an advantage. But like some of the guys that have been really successful in fantasy NASCAR, like they have a good idea, but we're going to have to relearn some of the stuff again and what is going to be useful, what are going to be the useful data points to go into. And maybe as we kind of wait for the dust to settle, like you don't really go all in yet. You don't jump in and buy a giant package yet. You kind of got to wait and see because I could be wrong. It could be the worst thing ever, and you might completely regret buying a fantasy NASCAR package. So maybe you wait. Obviously, we would love for people to sign up for the Patreon and do the monthly thing. But if it does turn into a disaster of a season, well, you've only signed up for a month and you can
Mhm.
get out of it. It could be a great year. It might not be, but I would tell people just kind of wait and see. Let's see how Daytona goes. Let's see how these upcoming weeks. I'm excited from what we saw at the Clash. I thought it could have been an absolute nightmare. I think that the race went pretty well. The whole weekend went pretty well. I'm optimistic, but I wouldn't be optimistic enough to commit to a whole season yet, right? We've been pro life in NASCAR before. I could be wrong. Practices could just be complete shakedown nonsense, and it's all worthless.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't commit to anything just yet, and there's other stuff to do.
Well, I mean,
I'm not selling our product very well.
Well, that I mean that's the whole reason why I like the month by month more than the season long. And even on top of that, like most of the time when we get back to preseason NFL football, most people just want to go back to football anyway.
USFL's kind of, end of the season. Like, I mean, I've been doing this for a while, and you've been doing this for a while. The weekly thing works really well, but it's just so impractical and inefficient. You can't do that. And the season long works too, but I always hated locking people in. I had people locked in, and then freaking COVID happened. And I was like, oh my God, what do I do? I don't think we'll have that happen again, but the monthly seems to be kind of the best plan to work with. And like you said, when football comes around again, you're locked into the season package that you don't use. Who knows? Maybe people are going to be all about USFL.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be surprised. I'm kind of excited about USFL. Are you?
I didn't even watch the Cardinals play in the playoffs this year, so football. I love football. You want to talk about seasons being too long? I think the NFL season is too long. I like football for about 6 weeks.
Tell me about it, man.
Oh yeah,
I worked.
I'm sorry. No,
covering every fucking sport. They're all too long. NBA, MLB is going to start up again, and I'll be excited about MLB. But when I'm writing Showdown Slate articles in October, I'm going to want to put them. Those aren't bad. Those are easy slate to cover. But when you're doing a Saturday slate where you're covering 30 teams, you got to get the article out by noon. Okay, anyway, no one wants to hear me complain about that. But there's so much stuff going on. I understand if people are going to be hesitant, like, maybe I don't want to sign up. Maybe I don't need this data. I get it. I understand. Wait and see. Watch some of the videos. Hang in there with us. Hopefully this has been helpful. We only really talked about trucks. I'd like to do Xfinity again, when we get some time. Maybe tomorrow.
Yeah, we can do that.
Something. Takeaways.
Stack from the back. Play the ugly guys in the back. That's just how it is.
We just wasted an hour of people's time. We could have just said that for me. But we've been saying that for years. Every year. Going back since they started this in 2015. Play guys in the back. It's never changed. You can look in the spreadsheets. We've got all the optimal lineups from every single plate race ever. I believe there's been, 26 now?
Before we end, I'm curious because I don't have the contest to go back, but I don't remember the optimal lineups really ever being played. It's always just a high scoring lineup based on place differential. But hidden, and I'm sure that's a discussion for the Millionaire Maker.
I played the optimal.
Oh, why didn't you say that before? I forgot about that.
In the truck race in 2000, was it?
Last year, year before last.
No, it was the year before that. I can't. It's just luck. I'm not gonna sit here like, I built the optimal lineup and won the GPP.
It pulled you. I mean, look.
The bigger break wasn't that I landed on the lucky lineup, which I just did by playing guys in the back. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend to be special.
You finished first, and then fifth, or
first and second.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Is the interesting thing, and this is kind of the thing that didn't went out. Not only can you luckily randomly land on it, someone else didn't land on that same stupid lineup as well. That was the strange thing. What? How did I only end up? Because we know to stack people in the back. And I think I kind of took some guys kind of in the middle.
Well, you played Raphael when he won the race, right?
Yeah.
He was
it was a big wreck at the end, which is every freaking one of them.
Yeah.
It's just luck. And I've had to go both ways, and I guarantee everyone out there has had the dumb luck of looking at your lineup before the thing ended, like I'm winning the GPP, and then the Daytona wreck happens. I remember 2018, the Xfinity race. All the wrecks were happening, and I was in first. Like, holy shit! I've dodged them all. Nope, there was another one.
Yeah.
And I went from winning after all these wrecks is the one that Tyler Reddick won, and it happens.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I don't think you have to build the optimal lineup. Maybe I don't think you have to do anything. You just gotta get lucky. That's all it is. It's pure luck. We just recorded a video for an hour.
Yeah, the takeaway is luck.
You gotta, That's it. That's it. Yeah. Obviously, the more lineups you enter, you increase your chances. Now, I only built 3 lineups in that contest too, so the fact it's just pure luck. I mean, that's about the fact that I hit, the fact that no one else hit with me, and the fact that I only hit 3. I put 3 freaking lineups in. It was lightning striking. That's all that was.
So real quick before we end this, not only do I remember like seeing like holy shit he got first and second, but being in Discords and people asking who is this guy, who is like they're man this guy just finished first and second. Who is this? Like
yeah, total Samant move. Yeah. But like anyone out there watching this video could do that. Anyone can hit a break this weekend, which is kind of the cool thing. Like, you're not winning $1 million in the NFL Super Bowl pool doing that. You're not winning that. Like I know people like, oh, there's a $100,000 tournament in basketball every night. You're not going to. The guy entering 150 lineups that has a fantasy cruncher that has these things calculated. That's like I think Sheets is a perfect example of a guy who's really successful manipulating the game. No offense. Like I think he's taken like his hedge fund economic strategy of compiling a bunch of data and over the long run mass entering and using that to beat the stock market. Well, you can do the same thing, and they are doing that in the NBA. They are doing that in the NFL, where they are compiling a bunch of different projections and they're mass entering every single night with that same formula. And over the long run, you're just going to accumulate. And sometimes you have big nights, some nights you'll take losses, but you can afford that.
Mm-hmm.
I can't do that. Mm-hmm. Normal people watching can't do that. And so if I enter one lineup in NBA or one lineup in MLB, I can't beat them. I can't beat thousands of people that are doing that every single night. They're not even really like looking at the data. They're just running. I mean, they kind of watch it. Right? Sheets watches the games and he knows who he likes, but he also knows where to take like his brain away and allow the computer to do its work. Mm-hmm. Same thing like with Awesemo. Alex Baker knows when to like say, hey, yeah, here's what I see, but let's also let the computer algorithm run it, right? Like, but in NASCAR, I think this is one of the few where it's not so much those guys. Like a lot of the guys that are winning, a lot of the guys that have been pretty successful, I think they have more of them inputted into it rather than the computer just hitting 150 entries over and over and over throughout the weeks and doing a bunch of projections. Because like computer projecting for these races, it's pretty broken because anything can happen. Yeah. A projection model in the NFL, pretty consistent. A projection model in the NBA, very consistent. Same thing with baseball. A projection model for a season in stock car racing, it's consistent, but the accuracy is so low that
it's very volatile. There's huge peaks and valleys between what a projection can represent.
And if you're going to go that route, then you're better off just putting your eggs in the basket of baseball, basketball, football. It's not worth the risk in NASCAR of running that route. You hit occasionally, but that strategy is just much better in other sports. So in NASCAR, you don't see too many people doing that. And you also don't see too many people being successful at that. But what you do see are people getting lucky like me. And sometimes I'll win because I put strategy in too. Let's not pretend. Let's say it's all luck. But also, like you see familiar names like, was it B. Rude Hot? Is that the guy's name? I think he won the Clash.
Well, ACS from last year, a guy that used our stuff last year. Like these guys are always consistent.
Yeah, and they're not just relying on projections. They're watching the races. They're doing the work. And so NASCAR is one of the few I mean, we're actually watching machines over men, but actually the DFS game is more man over machine. And like the other guy with the Modern Family picture, what's his name? I cannot believe I'm blanking on it now. It's such a shame. Talked to him all the time last season. You know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know. I got you. I'm not helpful. Yeah.
Because he had a name in the Discord, and he had a name that was his whatever. Anyway, the guys that have been successful, you can attack the sport. You can get lucky here, whereas I don't. The point of this was you can get lucky in NASCAR.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to get lucky in football,
Mm-hmm.
but also you can build a handful of lineups and you can put your thought in and still win in NASCAR. Whereas I don't think you can in the other sports. Not now. Not with like the arms race of. I mean, I've talked about this before. Like you just watch the other shows in the other sports, and they're just talking about, well, I've got 32% ownership on Karis LeVert tonight, and I've got, I'm under 5% ownership on. Do you want to talk about Karis LeVert's matchup? Or are we going to talk about the pace of play? Or are we going to talk about their propensity to shoot threes? No, we're not going to look at the games at all. What we're simply just going to look at is the field wants this much of this guy, and I want this much of this guy. Oh, they have this much, I have this much of this guy. And that's all the shows are. And like, it sucks watching them. And I can't believe they still do this. And I can't believe thousands of people are watching them not talk about matchups, just talking about game theory. Beyond it being the nerdiest thing I've ever seen in my life, it's just boring. And I'm not meaning to offend these guys. A lot of them know the sports, and they could talk about the sports and could talk about the matchups, and they're watching the games. But for whatever reason, they're not allowed to talk about the games. Not allowed to talk about the matchups. They just talk game theory, and I guess that's what people want to see. But the bigger takeaway from that is, that's what's happening in DFS and these other sports. It's not about, oh, you analyze the matchup between slot receivers versus the Arizona Cardinals, and no. Sorry, you just spent a day doing research on, the free safety is out for the Cardinals. It didn't matter in the end. It was just that you needed to have this guy because he was lower ownership play. And so they're right when they talk about those shows, like, oh, yeah, you should have had this guy at 2% and you would have won the GVP. But it makes for a terrible product. But the bigger reveal is that that's all that the game is in those big tournaments. Did you run the fantasy cruncher to make it sure that you only had 6%? And you can see, like, people try to make that happen in NASCAR, and you've seen people try to make that happen for the last 5 years. Like, oh, here's the ownerships, and here's how it, and it just doesn't work. It hasn't worked, at least to my knowledge. I mean, I've seen like, oh, well, here are the ownerships that we're gonna have, and then like, I always get a kick out of people projecting ownerships in NASCAR, and then like all that stuff. I'm like, that's my rant of the day.
Yeah, we'll wrap it up with this is so obviously stack from the back, and then there's more layers to that, like stack from the back, and then I like to at least have an idea of who's going to be popular. That's why, like in my little PDF, like I don't put ownerships, but I just put the word chalk because it's easier for me to at least know who's going to at least be played. In the grand scheme of things, the ownership number doesn't matter. I just need to know where the ownership is actually going, and specifically at plate races, if I know so-and-so is going to be popular, I can just play the guy starting right behind him who nobody knows who he is.
Yeah, like, so, and I can see the playing the ownership game for this Daytona race, right? If you want to kind of differentiate, that's fine. But when we do Fontana, like, you can play the ownership game all you want if you're building 150 lineups or whatever, but I'm going to focus more on who I think is going to run. I mean, if we go back to that last Fontana race, Alex Bowman ran well in that race because he was fast at the end of the Las Vegas race the week before that. And guess what? He was fast in all 3 practices. Okay, cool. What's your ownership model say? How did you come up with it? Like, did your ownership model look at all the different practice reports or whatever? End of the day, did you look at the lap by lap data at Fontana? If you did, you knew that Alex Bowman and Ryan Blaney were going to be fast, and then you just played them. Now, obviously, the Blaney thing didn't work out, but that happens, and that'll happen again. I don't know if that'll happen or not with Fontana with the tires. We'll see. Probably. They'll probably shred some tires. Yeah, if there was going to be a tire failure, it'll definitely happen to Fontana this early in the season. But to me, you want to do ownerships this week, that's fine. But when we get to Fontana, I want to see who's fast in practice. I think that's going to be important, and that's where I'm going to lean. And I don't know. I'm not going to be so concerned about, oh, this guy might be chalk or this guy's going to be low owned. I don't care. I just want fast cars.
Yeah, you know, I always have this mentality at the start of the year and towards like last month of the year, and then I talk myself into caring about ownerships in the middle of the season. But I need to just go back to just playing the good plays, like the people who look fast in practice, play the guys who project to finish well, or the guys that you think are, instead of being like, well, if he's owned, I need to build lineups in case he doesn't lead lap. Like if he's showing that he's the fastest car, I just need to play them.
Yeah, and so I kind of keep myself in a bubble for the most part and don't watch. The problem you run into is if you do start jumping into a Discord, then you fall down that hole, and you have no choice because I think you're in one. But being the introvert that I am and overall pretty much misanthrope, I don't listen to anybody or talk to anyone, and so I kind of don't even know who's going to be popular half the time until I talk to you, and then I get the idea. And like, oh, shut up! You're starting to sway me. I like it when you tell me good plays, but when you get me to start thinking about ownership, and then I stop thinking about who's good, that creates a problem. Then you start fading plays just based on he's going to be popular. Well, he's popular for a reason because the car's freaking fast.
Yeah. All right. I think we've rambled enough. I mean, we talked for 50 minutes, and we started with Talladega, and we got onto this, so.
Well, that's the way these things go. That's fine.
Yeah. We'll try and tackle a little bit of Xfinity plate racing tomorrow if we can see.
Yeah. Let's do it tomorrow. Yeah. But if people want the data, just get the damn data. Go check out the spreadsheet. That's
yeah. Thank you for 52 minutes in. Please check out the Patreon. Keep us here and make it so I don't have to bring on any sponsors because I don't want to do that. So we'll talk to you guys later.